want to make sure to be heard, so that way all's good. I'm gonna let people kind of get in real quick since it's a little early, because I know we started a little bit early today. I'm just giving everybody a couple more minutes to kind of join in because I know we started a little early today, but I'll make sure to keep talking because somebody said keep talking for a minute because the bots don't like when somebody isn't talking. So, but in case everybody's wondering, I am talking about character creation, uniqueness, how to keep create a unique, interesting character or add to your current character creation, what you might have out there in the world these days, especially since, because I was originally going to do new character creation, but I was also like, we also have a lot of people that have characters that are already made up, and I was like, why not talk about how to make our characters more interesting or, build up their uniqueness and strength and everything like that too. So is everybody doing all right today? Hopefully everybody's doing well. And sorry if I'm kind of like taking a moment because I'm going back and forth to see what everybody's writing real quick. I mean, we did have a good, ceremony for the awards and everything earlier. And congratulations to everybody that won earlier today. I know everybody, including Asteri, hopefully I'm saying that right, won something. Try to say, hey, try to get out of it, or something like get out of it. But I'm like, you deserve it quite well because you've helped me get my presentation on point today. So, yeah, because her and I think like Duloc and Phoenix Allure and everybody that makes Obsidian Fleet what it is amazing, including everybody here today. Like each player is truly amazing. And that's why I was like, character creation and how to build a character and improve on the characters, everything like that. I was like, that's definitely something I was kind of interested in. So, and I'm gonna, like I said, I've been just giving it a couple more minutes because I know I was supposed to start at 4 EST. So I'm just trying to give people a little bit of time just to kind of meander in and out, kind of thing. So, and if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to type it out, raise your hand, kind of thing. I don't know if you can do that in here, but whatever we can do, because I know I've got a couple different topics on character creation, and, uniqueness, improvements, whatever you want to call it, kind of thing. So, and I'm going to check something real quick, and hopefully I'll say, okay, just want to make sure I'm still good. Yes, Sam, exactly. Even though, as you and I know, the Elysium's currently a mess right now, all the aliens did their graffiti on the outside of the starship. So I think I might just go ahead and get kind of introduced real quick and get a little started if everybody's good with it. Make sure I'm looking at everything. That is actually a good question, Emu from the X-Men seems like universe kind of thing. So definitely something to, that is a good question. Let me get back. If I can get in here real quick. Give me a second. 1 second, real quick. Sorry, it's giving me a moment to be like, hang on real quick. I'll be right back. Because my computer's giving me a heck of a moment. I'll let Siri kind of do her thing because I know she got a couple bots that are recording and everything. So, but thank you for technical support. Okay, so it looks like I think we got the two bots that are recording and everything. So, I'll go ahead and get started on my panel for the day on character creation, how to make them unique, interesting characters, and everything like that. So, yeah, I'll let this theory kind of. I see she's talking real quick. So, okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. So, yeah, like I said, whether you're creating a new character, wanting to expand your current characters and everything like that, because I know when I originally saw the posting be like, hey, we want some panels to come in and everything. It's like, I was thinking back to my character on the Elysium, Andrin Orin, and when I was originally writing for him, I'm like, I wanted to write a new character because I've always kind of used basically the same. Hang on, real quick. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was, like I said, might have been where I came out and came back in or something. Okay, can you hear me, Sam? Okay, as long as Sam, just let me know if you can't hear me or anything, and I'll fill you in later, kind of go over everything I did at the end. So, but pretty much, when I was writing for the character of Andrin, it literally took me because Sam was actually the one that helped me, recommended me coming to the Elysium, and it literally took me a weekend to write this character out and everything, or a week to kind of get this character fleshed out and everything. And the something that when I was writing for this panel today, I was like something I wanted to, I was like, what do I want to hear from somebody that might have been on these places, like Sam had helped me out with, be able to write a character that would fit into the these places and make for an interesting and unique character. And he kind of helped me out with saying, gave me different things from the Elysium, Obsidian Fleet, different places, just kind of be able to write up a new character instead of having the same old character over and over again. And I even asked some of the people that I write with on the Elysium, be like, hey, if you could tell yourself, when you're first writing your character bio, or if you're writing for an NPC, or if you could have somebody say, hey, here's how you could improve your character, what would you write? And I've kind of got a list of a couple different topics that people are like, hey, this would be what I would improve upon for my character, or for a new character coming in, or how I would improve my character or other people's characters, and all that kind of good stuff. So, and the first really topic that I have is kind of a combo. It's species and position on board whatever sim you're trying to apply for, no matter what it is. And Obsidian Fleet, if it's Starbase, Starship, 1-year-old ship or sim, all the way to like the 150-year-old SS Mary Rose kind of thing. And I think species and position is kind of a combined thing, at least in my eyes, primarily because I've heard a lot of people say like a Klingon can't be a counselor. And the one big thing that I've always had with was, why can't a Klingon be a counselor? We can understand why, but it's also like, why can't a Klingon be a counselor? Because we've seen stuff like in TNG, Voyager, DS9, no matter where you go, of like, because I can remember vividly like a 6th or 7th season episode of TNG where Dr. Crusher brings in all those scientists for the field technology, and just be like, hey, we have Ferengi, we have Klingons, we have, I think, Cardassians and everything, and being like, hey, we have all these scientists from throughout the quadrant. Why can't a Klingon be a counselor? And that's the one big thing that I think is so important when you're thinking about writing for a character, whether you have an established character or no matter what kind of character you're writing for or what kind of species you're writing for, because I think they kind of go hand in hand. As Emu said, she says, one of her favorite characters is an Orion engineer, you know, clearly not a match made in heaven, but you could do with what you will, because I actually I'm a part of the Elysium Sim and OF, and then I'm also part of another sim that I'm like a chief science officer for, and I have a science officer that's a Klingon scientist that does like molecular biology and genetics. And as we all know, if we've watched Enterprise, we know what happened there, which, yeah, exactly, because we have different people that do different things, and we could make it work the way that we want it to work and everything. And like I said, with the scientist, the Klingon scientists, don't be bogged down by like saying, "Hey, I'm a Klingon. I'm going to be a security officer," or "I'm going to be a beta droid, and I'm going to be a counselor," or "I'm going to be, an ex-Borg that's an astrometrics officer." The biggest thing I think I've seen is kind of let think about what you're writing for that character, like position maybe first, being like, okay, hey, I'm going for like my character is a yeah, exactly, um because my character Andrin Oren is, when I was writing for him, I was like, I want to be Elorian something, I want to be, whether it be a full Elorian or partially Elorian. and especially because I knew I was going to be going for a chief diplomat position on the Elysium, and I knew from what I've heard in Alpha and Beta canon, Elorians are really good at being listeners. And I was like, I've never, I haven't played the Trill character before. I was thinking, looking into it, I looked on Memory Beta and everything like that, talking about how the Vulcans in the Trill had made first contact in like the 2050s, like the decade before they met Earth and made first contact with Earth, and apparently how disastrous it was. And something I made for my character, I was like, my father was a Trill diplomat. My mother was an Elorian diplomat and everything. Met in 2053 or something like that. And had me as one of their first children in 2054 or something like that. And I kind of made my character description upon that, built on it, saying, hey, there's a lot of discrimination even back then because when we first meet the Trill in TNG, a lot of people didn't know about the symbionts that the Trill held, and some of their, they were symbiotic species. And I've kind of built on that saying, hey, way back in the day, they really didn't know what was going on. They didn't trust anybody that wasn't a Trill, and building on that characteristic of, hey, what was it like back then having an Elorian come in for the Vulcans, marrying a Trill, having, pretty much biracial kids, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it, and how would it be for my character growing up and my siblings' characters growing up, and how would that affect maybe not only him being what he is now, a diplomat, and joining Starfleet, because I think I made my character where he didn't even join Starfleet until sometime after, between like the original series and Star Trek Six, The Undiscovered Country, because Krill didn't join the Federation until like 2278, and he said, I don't want to join them until my species and my home planet officially are part of the Federation. So definitely species and position are a big thing. And when you're thinking about writing for a character, how you can make your character unique and a lot of different things like that. And, saying, hey, maybe, like Emu said, self doubt is dishonorable, but like for a lot of people, like my character, he doubted himself in a lot of things. Because if you read my character description, there's a lot of things that went into him, and how can you make your own character, no matter if it's a already established character or not, more stand out in a way? Because that's a lot of things that I had asked the Elysium crew, being like, hey, I had a little bit of writer's block, and saying, hey, if you could tell yourself when you're writing your character or when your younger self, how can I improve on my character? And that's something that they're like, hey, make them stand out in a lot of different ways. Figure a way to, because like something that I think somebody had said was not every Cardassian or Romulan are evil. Not, they're not there to take, be like evil warmongering kind of people. So figure ways of being like, because even in DS9 we saw like Gul Dukat being like, hey, I had a half Cardassian, half Bajoran kid. How would it? How would you write for Zial if you were writing for Zial? And the next top, that kind of goes into my next topic of strengths and weaknesses of your character, because that is something that is so important when you're, whether you have an established character, or you're writing for a new character, an NPC, whatever you're writing for. Not everybody's going to be a hero. Not everybody's going to be this, the James T. Kirk or the Picard or Janeway or Archer or whatever these kind of characters are and everything. So, how does your strengths and weaknesses work for you? And believe me, that's something that could be ever changing because characters evolve over time. You might find that you might have a new strength or a new weakness that you may or may not know about your character. Because I know, especially with, my character, like I was like, how am I going to write for this character? I'm going to kind of, write from the heart, but what are maybe some of his strengths? What are some of his weaknesses and everything like that? And especially coming from a character that's half Elorian. We always hear that the Elorians are people of great listeners, especially in my character's position. I'm a diplomat, especially being the chief diplomat kind of thing. And it's like so important to be like, especially, with each sim, you know, I have not only diplomats, but I also have people that are um, my protection team kind of thing. And being able to, use the ability of my character's mother's lynch being like, hey, how, yeah, exactly. Commodore, exactly. And that's kind of the thing. I'm like, hey, I don't only have diplomats to worry about, but that are so strong headed. But it's also like, how are they going to work with their protection detail team that are there to be their guardians, no matter if they have people from their home world or not? It's like, okay, how are we gonna like? That's the one thing that, especially here in the mission that we're working on now on the Elysium, it's like, how are we gonna be able to like? Because I know our DPT is like, hey, we're here to protect you. We got an order from the Federation to protect you. You might have your own people, but it's also like, how can I integrate these people that are like so strong-willed, so independent kind of way? Like, how am I going to be able to integrate maybe these two teams? And that's what we're working on a joint post right now. Be like, hey, I don't know if it's up or not, but we're like, hey, how are we going to integrate these two teams to be able to work together, survive, especially in a place where we're so far off from Federation space right now? And that's something that, again, it's ever evolving for a strength and a weakness for not only a diplomat, but something for anybody that, kind of be able to say, hey, what's my strength? What are my weaknesses? They're changing, etc., etc. And now, real quick, does anybody have any questions? I know there's, I just went over like two different topics real quick, but I just wanted to see if there's any questions or anything like that that anybody might have, or comments or improvements or whatever. Because I know there's a little, I know there was a lot of stuff that I just kind of went over real quick. I just went off real quick. So I just wanted to make sure to see if there's any questions or comments, or be like, hey, what can I do better? Especially, since this is one of my first times I've hosted a panel, and I just want to make sure if there's anything I can do better for the next time. That is actually a really good question. Like the Roe Larens, the Thomas Rikers, the people that, or even like Sam, good question, because I'll even go like with Voyager and everything, because we had a lot of people that, it was like half and half, like Starfleet, half Maquis kind of thing. That's actually a really good question, and I think it would really depend on the writer, the sim, the fleet that you're writing a part of, too, because, I'll see what, yeah, and something that, it really depends on the sim that you're a part of or you're writing for, because you might be part of this sim like the USS Elysium, or you might be part of a sim that's a star base, like I can't remember if Starbase Everett or something. I think is part of Obsidian fleet, or part of another fleet. Because there's so many fleets that I've seen with Kittimer and everything. So, or yeah, exactly. Or an X-Men school for the gifted. It depends on each sim, because something that I did when I was researching the stuff for my topic today. I went through Obsidian Fleet. I went through the Elysium. I went through a couple of different things that people had sent me that I was like, okay, it depends on what does some people, when they're writing for a character, want in a character, or say you can't do this for a character, or you got to do this with special permission kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And something, I think, I can't remember if it was the Elysium or just Obsidian Fleet in general that I was looking at. It said, no Delta Quadrant species. Like, can't do the Kazon, you can't do the Malon, you can't do, like the Talaxians or anything like that. And they said, hey, XB is kind of a special case, special permissions kind of thing when you're writing for a character or trying to build up a character kind of thing. So, it I would say it really depends. It depends on the sim you're writing for, the fleet you're writing for, and what you're kind of aiming for that character. Because no matter if it's a Ro Laren type or a Thomas Riker type or a Chakotay type, because give you an example, because I grew up on watching Voyager, and I that was my first Star Trek love kind of thing. Um, Watching Chakotay from season 1 to season 7, like he came from a Starfleet background. Ro Laren came from background, Starfleet background. Same thing with Thomas Riker. But then you also look at something like, I'll give you a DS9 reference, like the Bajorans and Major Kira, or even Constable Odo. Like, where does that, what's the background of each character? And yeah, let's see here. Real quick, I'm reading what Sam wrote real quick. No, because I mean, and that actually kind of leads into like my next topic in a way, or my next topic or two kind of thing, is like, what's the motivation of your character? Because each of us, or what's the goals of your character? Because each of us are writing, each character is, because when I was writing for Andrin, I was like, okay, I knew, I kind of read over the guidelines of, the Elysium and Obsidian Fleet. Like, okay, you can't do Delta Quadrant species. XBs are kind of one of those special permission kind of cases, kind of thing. And not only your character, but like, when you're going into it, you're like, okay, maybe I have an idea, like a general idea of my character in mind. Or even if you're kind of working, on tweaking your own character, like, I've done this much with my character. What's next? What are my goals with each character? Because I think, when I originally wrote Andrin, like over about a year ago, I never would have imagined him where he is now. And part of that is like, okay, I did what I kind of maybe originally started out to do with Andrin and said, hey, I've done this much, but something that kind of goes into it too is you also have a group of people that you're writing with, no matter, because I think I watched the video that Commodore Lalore, hopefully I'm saying that right, did with Asteri, and that they put up on the YouTube channel. I don't know, when the original audio was done, but um, with our sim, it seems like we have about 20, 25 people, give or take, on an average everyday basis that is writing, doing stuff, and something that, what's your goals or your motivations with the character, after 6 months, a year. It could be something completely different than it is when you first write your character. And that's something important that as you're moving your character forward is something to really think about. Because, with my character, I started dating, in a way, dating Sam. And I'm like, when I first started writing, I was like, you know, I may or may not end up dating somebody like Sam or somebody else, or, that's something that totally came along naturally when you're writing for your character and writing with other characters. Don't be afraid to kind of change what your perceptions and your goals are when you're actually writing for a character, or updating the biography, or doing all that kind of stuff with the character. Yeah, exactly. Organic movement of not only relationship, but how your character changes over time. Because, like I said, I had this idea of a character. I basically wrote him up and said, "Hey, here's how I kind of want to start off with my character." It was pretty much just a jumping off board for my character, and how I was like, okay, I could use that as a jumping board and kind of adding it to stuff when I slowly get into the sim and start working with other people and everything like that, and all that kind of good gobbledygook kind of thing and everything. Which actually kind of leads into one of my other topics is, you know, relationships with, your fellow writers, your how your characters interact and everything. And especially with stuff like, Strange New World, and now being in the second season, and I don't know how many people have seen the most recent episode or two of Strange New Worlds and everything, and I'll say it was a good episode, but it also explains, you know, in such a comical, like, unrelatable, relatable way, be like, hey, how relationships work, no matter if it's I'm trying to date you or if I'm trying to be your friend, or like especially with Commodore Laura, like being like, hey, she's my commanding officer. I have Captain Gary Taylor. I've had all these other people that are, my bosses. How does that relationship work? And especially coming from, what's their backgrounds like and everything like that. Like, how does each type of relationship work? And like I said, with me and Sam, him and I, like, he's kind of, I knew him from another sim before I started working on the Elysium and had my character on there. And when I read up my character, and I'd been talking with them, like, and luckily enough, I started in an episode where I was like, okay, it's kind of easy to walk in and building that relationship with him. How does that work? And all that kind of good stuff. So, is there any more questions, real quick, about like relationships, um, character goals, motivations? Because I know there's a lot more to it than I probably am thinking, and have said. So, is there any questions, comments, anything like that? Yeah, that is also very true because you know, and I'll let you guys kind of write real quick, and then I'll kind of comment. Exactly, because I think for me, especially writing somebody that was half Trill, half Elorian, I knew he had that kind of background of, he's born in like 2054 or so, or 2055. I'd have to double check, my character bio. But the way that he was written for, not only was he considered an outsider because he was of mixed racial heritage, heritages and everything like that, but he knew from like early age that he wasn't like the rest of the people in his class. He's like guys compared to girls kind of thing, and that's something, especially coming from an older, because I write my character to have the Elorian genes of, hey, he could live a long time, but he was also able to join with the Trill symbiote, which he did back when, he was like 20 or 30 years old, give or take. And, it's really important to be like, hey, how does this character build relationships, with coworkers, with people that they might like, and especially because you got to think your character, you're writing for your character, but how do the other people, excuse me, perceive this character? Yeah, exactly. Like, and it really depends on like what ship or starbase you're a part of, or what fleet you're a part of. That's something to really look into about being like, hey, how can these relationships work? Like, how do these fleets or the ship or whatever allow for more open writing styles, or like you truly take your character one way or another. I'm seeing Indy's kind of writing, so that's why I'm kind of like trying to let Indy write real quick. Exactly, and that's when I was writing, kind of writing up my stuff for today, just talking about relationships, talking about like romantic ones, or non-romantic ones. Like I said, you got relationships with your coworkers, because like I've got to, because my person, being the chief diplomat on board the Elysium, so important to be like, hey, I know, I've got the diplomats that I've got to work with, ambassadors, stuff like that. But I've also got a diplomatic protection team that was assigned by the Federation Council, kind of thing, and working with them. And like, that's why I really enjoy writing for the, Elysium, because it's like we have so many people that are like, they write for so many people, and interesting to see like, hey, because like I said, I'm doing a joint post right now with the ambassadors and the diplomats in the protection team that was assigned by the Federation. That is so like, it really got kind of opened my, it always opens my eyes to something new, to be like, hey, how do I, as a chief diplomat, being like, integrate these two sets of people, be like, hey, I've got my protection team that is assigned by the Federation, and there's a chief, the person that oversees that and says, hey, we're assigned by the Federation to, protect you guys. Yes, you might have your own people, but it's also like, how do you, and then you got these ambassadors that are like, hey, we got our own protection, to heck with y'all, we're done with you, but it's also like me being the chief diplomat being like, hey, how do I like kind of make everybody happy, even if everybody's not wholly happy? So, and that's something, I really like to think about and everything. So, yeah, it really is. It really is sometimes. And that's why, because I think Commodore Lalore, please, again, if I'm saying that wrong, please forgive me. But, the Commodore has been really generous, helping us out, and I've been happy that it's kind of given us breathing room, with Captain Richardson, and I've been really enjoying working with him, building that relationship with my protection team, and just being able to work with people like Sam and everything, and everybody else. It's been really awesome. So sorry, I'm just reading real quick. So yeah, and you know, and I think what Indy said was kind of true when I was writing for when we've been doing the joint post between the diplomatic team or the protection team and the ambassador and everything. It's like one of the biggest things I've seen is there's a lot of strong personalities. People that are like, I've got my own people to protect me. Why do I need your people? And then the protection team from the Federation is like, hey, we're doing our jobs. We're assigned by the Federation, and we're going to do anything to protect you. You whether you like it or not. And that's a really big thing. Building relationships with all those kind of people. It's like, hey, how do you do it? How do you really, especially when you're, writing for one character, or you might have your main character and your NPCs and stuff like that. How do you build those relationships and make it really work? So that's relationships are really important, no matter if you're just writing for one sim as one character, or if you're writing for one sim, you got like multiple NPCs, like a lot of people on, because I know a couple people on the Elysium, they have um, their main character and a couple NPCs, and it's just like, what is each person like, and how do you write for each person, build those relationships, whatever kind of relationships those are. And I'm kind of letting people kind of write because I see a couple people, having some good discussions in here real quick about, character creation, all that kind of stuff. So, in relationships. So, just kind of letting people write real quick and seeing what kind of stuff we're coming up with today. Yeah, and that's something too, is like, depending on, because Sam does make a good point, like they have a character generator kind of thing. Because I think one of the panels, I don't know if it was this weekend or last weekend, was talking about using AI to create stuff, characters, posts, whatever. And that's something that kind of, because I've used chat GBT, excuse me, um, just for fun, not to write anything or make up characters or anything, but integrating something like that to make a character, like, because especially that just kind of opens up another kind of portal real quick. I'll talk about is how do you, if you have a character generator, it just makes up a character for you, as an AI kind of thing. And how do you, if it gives you like pretty much the whole character, how do you tweak that character to make it more like you? Or how do you, how you want it to be a character kind of thing too. So that's something, definitely a good thing. But how do you make it your own? That's another thing to kind of think about when you use like a character generator to be like, hey, I've got this character now, and how do I want to tweak it to make it my own? Which another one of my topics was, because I see that I think it's like Indy that's writing real quick. Which Indy? Which in a way, Indy, yes, not in Obsidian Fleet, but in other fleets elsewhere. Because as Sam knows, because him and I started on another ship in another fleet. That's how, how him and I met, and he eventually got me over here to Obsidian Fleet and all that kind of good stuff with Elysium. Um, the character that he met was actually my second character on board. That was actually, I think, the younger brother of the original character I had on there, which is a whole story behind that and everything. But I also had, the administrators, administrator and assistant administrator kind of people that do all the stuff for it. When I came back on board, I'd written a younger brother character for my original character to say, hey, to get me back on board because I'd, left for a couple years kind of stuff. And they let me have a younger brother character. And it was interesting to write because they also let me kind of use my original character to be like, hey, as like an NPC kind of character. And it really, depending on, again, what sim you're on, what fleet you're in, it depends on really working with the people that are, the game host and the assistant game host kind of people, with having like siblings or family that are on board. It could be very interesting. I'll say it's been very interesting doing it in the other sim, using using my original character here and there. And because my original character had been so many different things. I think I started out as like with my original sim and saying, hey, I think he started out as a diplomat over there, like the chief diplomatic officer or something over there. So when I came over here, whole story there. But he became like the chief science officer, chief engineer, and then when I came back, I became chief science officer and used my original character as like an NPC, saying he was like he became like a part of the Starfleet Corps of Engineers. Just kind of say every now and then bring him back in to the fold to say, hey, here's what he's doing, here's what he did, all that kind of good stuff. So, and that actually kind of leads me into one of my last few topics, real quick. Character originality in the Mary Sue situation. Because one of the biggest things that I've seen when I was doing my research for like character development, whether it's a new character, NPC, whatever, adding to your character is the Mary Sue thing. And that's been, yeah, exactly. Exactly, Commodore. It's like one of those things that I don't know if it's on the Elysium or if it was something that one of the other characters in the Elysium sim sent me. But no matter where it is, I've seen multiple different mentions of it everywhere. Is the Mary Sues, and you've got so many of them, but primarily when you're talking about like a Mary Sue that I've seen is the character that can do no wrong, is the most beautiful, yeah, exactly. And okay, that's interesting. I might ask you about that. I might private message you, Andy, about that because that's definitely I was wondering where that came from. But from pretty much my understanding was in a way that I can relate it back to Star Trek is you don't want to be you don't want to be a copycat. You don't want to be the next James T. Kirk or Janeway, Archer, Cisco, whoever, Picard, whoever. And it's almost like you're exactly. And I've seen so many different, they've kind of divided it up into several different types of Mary Sues. That is so important, because the basic one is you're almost a godlike figure. You can do no wrong. You can't die. You're the most beautiful person in the entire sim, kind of thing. And that's why I said, people like the Kirks, the Janeways, the Ciscos, the Picards, the Archers, they never end up dying. Where, we all know they can, but it's also like they never end up dying, except for in Enterprise where Commander Tucker dies. But in the books, there's a whole story behind that too. So, but you've got like that kind, and then you've got like because I have like the tragic Mary Sue, the belligerent Mary Sue, the slutty Mary Sue, the copycat Mary Sue, the transplant Mary Sue. It's like there's like a whole bunch of different types of Mary Sues that you might be able to, go find and be like, because especially because I think when I was looking at it, like the transplant Mary Sue, I think was one that really caught me was because when I was writing for the camp, my character of Andrew and Oren, I was like, I wanted a whole new character because I didn't want to just copy the same character that I'd done so many times before. And that one, when I was reading it, I think it was like, saying if you have like a Buffy character, I think it's what the one that a lot of people would use was, stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or you might have a Star Wars character, or something like that. You don't want to just use the same old character over and over again. And it's always good to write, for each sim, make something different. Don't be the same kind of character over and over again, which I had done. That's why I was like, when I was coming on the Elysium, I told Sam, I was like, hey, I want to be able to write a new character because I'd been writing basically the same kind of character over and over again. And the Mary Sue policies kind of helps be like, hey, here's a guideline of how you don't copycat or don't do XYZ and make for a really truly an 110% unique character within that you're writing for your sim, or improve upon a character. Don't do the same old stuff over and over again. So, are there any questions really quick? Because I think I'm about ready to get done with my hour here. So, is there any questions or comments that you guys might have thus far, really quick? Which I know I kind of, when I was writing it up, I was like, I had this whole, I have this Google document kind of written up to be like, hey, here's the ideas. And I'm like, didn't wholly go with it, but, kind of went out of order. But I was like, that's the beauty of presenting and everything. It's like you have people that come and watch, no matter who they are. And they kind of like let you go, like the Commodore Lore said, is like, when we were talking about relationships, the organic movement of stuff. And that's why I was like, I wanted to do this, is like talk about, hey, no matter what kind of character you might have, no matter where it's going, whether it's Star Trek or otherwise, because I know Emu was in here earlier talking, or I think that's what the character's name was, that does a lot of the X-Men stuff. No matter where you are, it's always important to be like, hey, some of these character tips could be used for new characters you might already have, or just generally like, hey, if you're writing for NPCs, even be like, hey, here's some maybe good, hopefully, techniques to be able to, improve, make good, interesting, unique characters, or improve upon the ones that you might already have. So, well, if there's nothing else today, I think I'm gonna head on off and say thank you for everybody that came in, and say, hopefully it'll add a little bit to your repertoire of characters that you may have currently, or if you're thinking about writing some new characters. And hopefully, it definitely helped me improve upon my, like, saying, hey, here's, my stuff. So I do appreciate everybody that came out today. So, but all right. Thank you guys very much.